Yeah, so welcome back. Like, I am back and hopefully looking browner than I was when you last saw me. Because I've been on holiday for a week.
Yes, you've been to sunny Florida.
Very sunny Florida. It may be sunnier than I wanted it to be Florida. I'm not complaining at all. Obviously, I've been away for a week. I don't know if I said in the last episode, but it was my 10th wedding anniversary this year. So we decided to take a week away, and we went back to Florida, which when we left in February, it was... Well, you thought it was cold, but you're always cold. And when we came back this time, it was very nearly 40 for most of the day. So
in February it was somewhere between
it struggled to make 20,
like 16, and sometimes it'd be like 25, so you really couldn't tell. And that's my worst kind of weather because, like you say, I'm always cold. I'm sat here in a jumper and jeans in July right now, but
and I'm literally in a t-shirt. It was lovely, but it was very, very hot. It was nice to have a week away. I think I've put in our notes I have never taken, I don't think, since I've been doing this job, a summer holiday. I've always holidayed in the early part of the year, like January, February, or October, November.
So you've never really, June, July, August has been off the books?
No, obviously I had a destination wedding last year, which meant that I was out of the country for 4 days. But that definitely wasn't a holiday. I've never actually taken a week off in the summer before.
Wow, okay.
So to kind of have a week away, it was nice to kind of have a week in the middle of the season, which brings its stresses because you're kind of going from being really busy and come back to being really, really busy.
There's like a deadline before you go on holiday.
And to have that mini deadline almost of and I also kind of made sure that I was as caught up with my edits as I could be. So even I delivered a couple of weddings before I went away that kind of weren't due just yet. They were due while I was away. Just so it kind of gave me a buffer that I didn't have to come back and then be like, you've got a wedding due tomorrow. So it's allowed me to kind of get over the jet lag, clear my inbox, and then still have kind of a week or so to kind of get editing again and kind of keep things moving without things slipping. So I would do it again, I think. I think I'd maybe plan for it a little bit better.
Despite, it's quite a last minute thing,
despite my anniversary not moving every year, we still kind of toyed for ages about maybe going just away for a night in this country or doing something. And it wasn't until, probably about 3 weeks ago that we were like, no, we should do something big because it is a big anniversary. And fine, let's go to Florida. So we did and booked it really short notice. So then it was more of a panic to kind of get everything in order before I went.
Something like it was just an all-inclusive either. A trip to Disney in Florida, as we know, is one of those where it's it's a sensory overload. There's a lot to do, and it's quite hard to sit back and do nothing on that kind of holiday because you've already paid for everything.
That's it. We only did 2 parks while we were there, so essentially we had 3 days down days, which they weren't. We went to the cinema, we went to the outlets, we went resort hopping. So we were always doing something. We only probably had a couple of afternoons where we actually did sort of lay and not do a lot. But I think for this time of the season I need that. I think my brain was still very much it's kind of I'm doing this and doing that, where if it's distracted by doing fun things, I didn't really think about work at all. Or not in a oh crap, I've got loads to do way. On the flight home, I actually had kind of a couple of things come to me, in a quite healthy kind of ideas basis, oh, maybe I could do that, or maybe I hadn't thought of that.
That's where the mindfulness thing comes in, isn't it? It's I always say my best ideas come in the shower, because that's the time where I'm not really thinking about anything else, and it's just my brain suddenly defrosts, and all these ideas come out of nowhere. Being on holiday, I remember when we went to Turkey in May, and we just sat there, I was reading a book, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do this from my website, and then wrote down a list of things that I was thinking of.
And I think it's that, but I think if I'd have laid and done nothing, I think that kind of I should be doing something, I should be moving, I should be moving. I'd have had too long to sit with my own thoughts, where I was like, oh, let's go and do this, let's go. There was always something to do, which was more fun than think about work. So kind of having... albeit I kind of wrote in here, and the way you described it, I think in the lead up was perfect, is that it was very much a mental holiday rather than so much as a physical holiday. I didn't say I did a whole lot of relaxing, but mentally having a break.
Your brain was distracted away from thinking about inquiries and prices and marketing and all of the stuff that we
and also as well, I think it's probably worth noting, I don't know if we touched on it last time, is that in the month of kind of June leading up to me going away the first week of July, my inquiries were hauntingly quiet. Far quieter than they ever have been for the summer. I know it's always a quieter time, but really quiet. And I think it was starting to bother me a little bit. I was like, why is nobody getting in touch? Why is this and has started to worry about it. And I know we've said in other episodes when we spoke about holidays that the best thing to do when you're quiet is go away. And I think on the day that I flew, I had an inquiry. and then by the time I came back, I'd had 5 inquiries.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Again, you kind of what's changed? I don't really know. But my June was hauntingly quiet, and I've now had more inquiries in that first week of July than I had in the whole month of June.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they're coming. That they're coming back in. I'm starting to.
It's just because there's not an inquiry season at the moment, isn't it? It's just like everyone expects January is going to be absolutely mental, and then this year it was kind of on par with other months for me. Like I still get more bookings in January than other months, but I don't think inquiries came in dramatically more than other months this year.
No, again, January's always busy, but I don't feel like it was. Like it wasn't kind of like absolutely rushed off. Like I wasn't like wading through the inquiries every every day. Like I kind of feel like I have been in other years in January. It's literally like another day. Oh, more inquiries. But I feel like it fell off a cliff somewhere. Like second week of May for me though, and then it was nothing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of quite comforting. That to only have kind of a mental break to not worry about it. To then come back and be like, I feel like someone hit a reset button, not only like in my inquiries, but in me as well. And I've come back kind of ready to jump back onto the treadmill and also feel a little bit more certain about the future.
I feel like there must be a formula of the best times to go on holiday as a wedding videographer and photographer, or even supplier really. Because I've been I think it might be January is maybe the best.
Yeah.
Because editing is probably for most photographers finished or on its way to being finished. For me, I still had the pile when we went in January, but the pile was short enough that I wasn't worried about being late to deliver or anything. Yeah. So by that point, I had a lot more I'd relaxed from the season and was ready to go on holiday and still be quite active about things. But I went to Dubai and Vegas last year, didn't I, in September and October. Yeah. And I had a great time of those holidays, but every taxi journey I was asleep. Because I was knackered from the season, and I know that it was September and October, and the season started to die down by then. But that editing pile was still there, still smashing through. And I remember, being in Vegas with my friends, and every time we got in a taxi, I'd go sleep, and I'd wake up at wherever we'd be, and it's not a good place to be.
Yeah, but it obviously shows that you needed that. Again, and we've spoken about this in end episodes, having the right type of break at the time that you needed it. Yeah. And I think because if I'd have gone like you said, if we'd had that couple of nights away in this country, I still would have been checking my emails, or I'd have been the biggest one for me, which I hadn't considered until we booked it, is to be on UK time, to fly as far as going to Florida. Yeah. It's a 5-hour time difference. Yeah. So by the time I woke up in the morning, it was already past midday here. Yeah. So I could normally get up, have a little look at my emails in the morning, just see if stuff had come in. And I didn't need to worry about it for the rest of the day then, because I knew that the bulk of people that were going to get in contact with me would have already done so.
True, yeah.
So by then I could look. I don't really need to reply to anything, but going, I've got inquiries coming in, things are okay, not too bad. And then I felt quite restful that I could go off about my day, or I didn't have to worry about someone from a work call ringing me or this coming in, because by the time that we kind of got to mid-afternoon, most people here are asleep. Yeah. So I kind of felt like I wasn't missing out on work stuff as much.
True.
Because and having that almost physical kind of time barrier, where I felt that if I was still running on UK time, or it only been an hour down the road at a fancy hotel, I wouldn't have had that separation in my head.
As a pressure to reply to those sort of emails. Yeah. It's 6 p.m. They've got back from work. They're just on wedding planning. I better reply to them now while they're still in wedding planning mode. And
if I rock up in their inbox at 2 a.m, it's not quite the same, is it? You kind of might have a negative impact. So they go, why is this damn guy replying in the middle of frigging night? Yeah.
It's always the way though that when you're not focusing on when you're worried about something, when you're not focusing on it, it seems to get better.
Yes.
And I remember working at Debenhams and being at the till and no one's there, and then you walk away and suddenly there's a queue, and you say, oh, why is there always a queue when I'm not there, but when I'm there nothing happens? And it's the same sort of similar thing with inquiries really. You get into the season, you stop thinking about it, because I think from January to April, May, it's quite easy to think about it a bit more because you're not shooting as much. But when you get into the season, you're not worrying about it. So maybe they come in and you don't really realise it. Or when you go on holiday, like you say, and they start floating in when you're not even thinking about it, and it's gives you that boost.
I feel like whatever happens with it, we're never going to be happy.
No.
Again, we've said this a bunch if you're a long time listener here, is that I only probably want to shoot 30 to 35 weddings a year. I don't want to go into a season much more than 2/3 to 3/4 booked. So I only really need 20 to 25 weddings by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So to be sort of halfway to that now is I'm probably pretty much on track.
Yeah.
But I kind of still feel I still want email. I still want inquiries. I still want inquiries to prove that people are still looking at this.
Yeah.
But then I don't always, at the moment, kind of like, well, if every one of those inquiries is on a date that I can do, and I book them all, I'm going to get to a point where I've booked too many weddings by the time I want to. Yeah. But then at the same time, if nobody inquires, I then have sleepless nights and panic that I'm, going to be going to get a job, having to go and get a real job by the end of the year because I haven't got the bookings. And it's far from that, but it's the way that kind of your brain manifests these things, isn't it? That it kind of there's no happy medium, is there?
That's why booking numbers matter more than inquiry numbers. Like, it's all right getting 50 inquiries a month, but if you're not booking them, then what is the point in having that? Hence the reason, like, we both have our price on our website. We've both spoken about our personal opinions on that and things like that, but I think that does narrow it down to, like, the inquiries that you get are genuinely serious and things like that. So, but you might get less, and you might get times where similar to you, I think it was beginning of May till somewhere early June, maybe even mid-April to early June, where the inquiries fell off a cliff. Yeah, I was just like, "What is going on?" It's just a ghost town. Yeah, and I keep track of all my inquiries and bookings, and usually, like, over a year, it's just like, one month, two next month, one month, and it just like is a nice steady flow. But now it just seems like nothing for 3 months, and then I'll get 5 bookings in a month, and then nothing for 2. Like, it's so random at the moment, you can't really tell.
And I think that's it. There seems to be at the moment absolutely no pattern. Like, say, other times a year that you thought have been quieter or busier are proving quite the opposite this year. So I think if you are sat there with maybe less bookings in than you normally have, I would say, again, I was doing this, so I can't blame if you have, is I was getting to the point where I was quite worried. Yeah. And I think I remember saying to Ro, like, I don't mind at the moment almost being down on bookings, but at least if people are inquiring, I know that I'm being seen. Yes. But even I'm getting ghosted on the other end of that, there's still something prompting those people to get in touch in the first place, which means that my website's being seen, or my contact form's actually working, and inquiries aren't falling into the ether. It means that the system that I've put in place to get bookings or get inquiries is working. Yeah. Because I was at that point where I had them off that long that I was like, do I need to send myself a dummy inquiry to make sure that my leads aren't broken? Or do I need to make sure that I'm not going to end up with this somewhere? Or, like, the contact form on my site actually works? Or do I need to go and make sure that my website hasn't been blacklisted? Or, all of these things. And like you said, if you kind of had a chasm of it was probably around the same time that you launched your new site. It was, So you knew that there's always going to be a settling in period. Yeah. But kind of that kind of ego side of you, sort of like, I need inquiries to prove that I'm still popular.
It's a confidence thing.
And it is. And I think you do. And it's that, isn't it? It's kind of... And I was like, as long as people start getting in touch, I don't need to convert all of them because of the numbers that I want for the year. Yeah. But just people then, at least, it means that there are people out there booking weddings, and there's people out there booking weddings that are looking at my site and kind of feel that there's something coming for me to kind of have something to base it off of.
There's nothing wrong in the process to go and, like, for them to inquire.
There's nothing desperately putting people off at that point to not even get in contact.
I had my busiest month I've ever had for inquiries in June, which was a nice little confidence boost, and the bookings have been slowly trickling in from there. Because obviously, like, we book them in for a call, and it takes a while to, like, convert them and things like that. Yeah. And not all of them responded. To be fair, like, if you get enough inquiries, there are going to be quite a few that probably don't respond, or so I got a lot of responses saying, thanks for your reply, just need to get a few other things sorted and look at my budget and maybe get back to you.
So it's not a no, it's just a not now.
Yeah. But that was the boost that I needed after, like, obviously you say you got your inquiries when you're on holiday. That was the boost that I needed after having a month and a half of being like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Like,
and also, like, slogging hard to build a new website. Like, you started from scratch, and it's an absolute labour of love, isn't it? To kind of new copy, finding new images, new colours. You'd spent out on, like, new logo and all of this stuff. So you kind of think, well, I've put all this hard work in. Like, just give me some damn reward here.
And then you sit and wait
patiently. Like spent like 5 hours later, like no inquiries. And then you think, well, my old website that wasn't even as good as this one was getting inquiries. And I think that's what I said.
Went through my head. What's wrong with the new website?
Yeah. I said to 2 or 3 people, I was like, I feel like at the moment I am making the absolute work of my career. Like, I don't feel like I've made work consistently as strong across the board as this ever. Yeah. So how am I getting less bookings? Yeah. And it's like, does my work just need to be crap again? And people will book me. And it's like, and then you kind of say, all that self-doubt creeps in. So I kind of feel that maybe leveling times are coming, and things hopefully are starting to catch up with themselves. And by the time that we get to the end of the summer, I'll kind of feel that like kind of equilibrium of where I need to be has been restored.
That's the thing. As long as it equals out over the 12 months, then you're doing all right. When it comes is irrelevant at this point, to be fair, and quite unpredictable. But yeah, so you just got to sort of have faith in the.
Yeah, I mean that's it, isn't it? It's being prepared to play the long game,
Yeah.
and having that kind of mental stability to not do anything rash too soon,
Yeah.
or that just devout belief that like it's not me, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's just not my
Start
time at the
giving
moment.
discounts and like trying to just desperately
Yeah.
get bookings in for the next year.
Because then like, it's easy to slash prices, hopefully book a bunch of people, and then when it all catches up with itself, you're like, oh, well, I'm actually earning less money than last year to doing more work again, and you almost feel you're taking steps backwards from where you
Yeah.
want to be. It's like it's a quick fix, isn't it? But in terms of the long game, it's not getting ahead. But unfortunately, like kind of, it is easy to get so easy to just be like, oh, well, I need to do something. I need to do something.
Yeah.
And
like,
then
start blaming yourself and being like, oh yeah, well, maybe I changed the website. Oh, maybe I'll just like adjust the prices. And I do it all the time. I adjust my packages all the time. Partly for me and partly for the couples. Like if I have bad inquiry month, I might raise like the film length by a couple of minutes or something like that, and do like small little tweaks like that. So I'm always changing stuff, but most of the time I'm fully aware that's probably not why. It's just the luck of the draw and what comes through. So,
but it's how it manifests in yourself, isn't it? To kind of keep yourself kind of proactively thinking about it, or feel then that you're making small changes to kind of get better, rather than kind of it's easy to blame other people. But
in the summer, I feel like summer may be a better booking season now for me, because with the rise of like Instagram collaborations and things like that, like if a photographer asked me the other day, what's your main sources of inquiries now? And I had to think about it, because I do put where every booking comes from into an analytics, but not necessarily every inquiry. But Instagram has been popping up more and more and slowly overtaking referrals now.
Do you know what? I found the same actually. Like for every one person that's telling me like Instagram's dead and within like 6 months it's going to become like Facebook and I should be opening a TikTok account and stuff. If I look at my little pie chart, which I have in Studio Ninja, obviously you cite a lead source upon inquiry, and it's that at the moment, Instagram is ahead of referrals for me, I think for the first time ever, that people are finding. And like you say, if you're collaborating with venues, or all the time you're posting new work, you're tagging in other suppliers and the venues, that web is there. And again, it's got shiny new content on it. And so what, it is working
winter,
for
it's just
you.
like reposting this reel and this sort of moment. And
do you remember when the sun actually shone? Here's a work from 6 months ago.
Yeah, I feel like it's all fresh, and it's fresh in the couple's minds, and they're sharing it, and their family and friends are loving it. I'm getting so much more from Instagram now, and I feel like that might be part of the boost that's coming in, is consistent.
Or also, there's a lot of people deserting Instagram because they think it's not working for them anymore. Where maybe it is still kind of, maybe you sort of just need to keep putting stuff in to get something out. It's easy to go, oh, the algorithm, and I'm going to move to something new.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think, if you keep plugging away at it, I think it will give you results.
Well, I think we're both like halfway through our seasons now. I think I'm pretty sure the wedding on Saturday marks my halfway point.
Yeah, I think the one that I shot the day before I went on holiday did for me, so I think I'm pretty much halfway.
And when I was thinking about that, I was reflecting on our episode from the end of last year, where we sort of finished the year, and it was like we called it our sad episode.
It is like,
we were just like, like quite deflated, and it felt weird because I never really felt like it had been a rubbish year, but I just felt quite deflated at the end of it. And I just wanted to talk this year about mid-season, how we're feeling, because personally, I feel like if it carries on going this way, our end of year episode this year is much more positive, because I feel like the weddings I've been doing are incredible. I've been loving the venues I've been shooting. It's all felt so cohesive this year. Mental health is slightly better. It just feels like it's going well, and the couples I'm booking are, I'm not quite at that level yet where I've got like you're a Spice. Do you want to be a Spice Winning Films couple? Yeah. But I feel like they are because they're booking me, and I know that they're a Spice Winning Films couple. Yeah, now you're starting to all the things that you've put out in your marketing is coming back to you in the couples that you're shooting all with. And I find that, and I wouldn't say that last year. Like I always feel that I'm incredibly blessed to get the couples that I am, and probably 99% of the time I always really get on with my couples. But yeah, I don't know why. There's just been something in the air this year that's kind of just made me go like, this is it. And
think last year there were plenty of other things that got in the way. The weather, I think, really just kind of certain like little other things that kind of ground me down over the course of the year. Maybe kind of letting myself get a little bit bogged down with kind of work or letting things slip. But it was
the weather, certain trends and things like that, wasn't it? That were just like, oh, this is exhausting.
And whether I've just kind of built myself to tune out to that this year, or kind of just trusted the process of no, the couples that I've got are saying the right things. They want the same things that I do, and just kind of having that core belief in that, no, do your thing and they will like it. Is that I feel much the same. Kind of if the next 6 months can play out as well as the first 6 months of this year have gone, then I'm going to have absolutely no complaints when it comes to the end of the year and be a very, very happy wedding photographer.
That's what I've put, and hopefully, like, because last year I think it was July and August that really ground on me because of the weather that was getting. Like July and August, your weddings where they've spent a lot of money to get married on a Saturday in July or Saturday in August, and they're going to be gutted if it rains. So you're going to get a couple that's slightly gutted, but also you're going to be gutted because you've booked in a Saturday in August and it's like a rainy day, and it's not that it can't be a portfolio, but I like to show sunny weddings and things, or at least not hammering it down with rain on.
I thought last year my golden hours, which is something which was a big selling point for me on marketing, were really I had like 2 weekends where we had really good ones. And luckily, one of those weekends was a double wedding weekend for me, so I've got 2 sunsets. But apart from that, they were really thin on the ground. Where other years, it's like every weekend, you're like, yep, another weekend, another banging golden hour, and this and that. And I think, like for you as well, and we spoke about this a little bit, is the way that it fell last year for you. You shot such a huge volume of weddings in 1 month of the year. Is that you spent that second 6 months of the year just basically catching up or feeling overwhelmed with the amount of editing you had. Where hopefully this year, if your weddings are a lot more evenly spread, that shouldn't get to a point where you don't feel that you're losing the game. It
doesn't feel like I'm just adding to the pile, and I'm a train that's just like slowly come off its tracks and then just like gone too fast.
You feel that you are keeping up.
It's just keeping up, And I also, I think both of us really are producing our best and most on-brand work that we've ever produced. And by on-brand, I mean on-brand to our values, not necessarily like I mean our company brand as well, but our values and what we like everything I'm posting on Instagram now, I'm fully like behind it and I feel passionate about it. Whereas sometimes it was like you post something just because you need to post or whatever, and it's like
I wonder if some of it comes with an age thing or learning lessons from last year. But I think this year I've posted a lot more freely. I think I was trying to second guess myself so much last year to go, is this on brand? Is this? And now I'm kind of like, well, I am my brand, so if I like it,
I said to you at the beginning of the year, mate, you need to post more.
Like, and you said to me, like, just keep posting more. And I think I've definitely taken that in mind, or tried to just not over curate, or almost get to the point where I think about it so much that I just don't post anything. Now it's just kind of like, it's good work, post it. And it's quite freeing to feel like that as well. Not feeling that posting social media should be a fun thing, sharing people's wedding photos. It shouldn't be like, is this good enough? Is it on brand? Is it going to attract the right people? Is it going to do this? Is it that? Is it the right? So just post it.
There's still going to be an element of that, but I think the photos you take are all, you don't go in there, take some editorial photos, but post your natural ones. You go in there and everything that you take is to your values in a way. So.
And I think, like you said a minute ago, because it's summer, you're posting new work. You shoot a wedding on a Saturday, you deliver the previews the next morning. And then I'm like, I'm excited about these. I had a great time with that day. I'm really proud of the previews. And I want to get on there and share the previews that I've just done. It's not like, I need to trawl back through my archive and just pull a couple of posts together this week with no kind of direction of what that's going to be. It's like, it kind of felt a lot more like, I've made these. This wedding was great. I want to share it. So,
But for me, part of it comes part of the whole, obviously we mentioned I've redesigned my website and I'm shooting the best content I've shot and on brand work, and part of that comes from what I got from our own workshop that we delivered in May, was it? I think
it seems mad that was that long ago already.
I know. And we put together that workshop from scratch, and as we were doing it, I was starting to look at my own site and things, and I know you were doing a little bit of the same as we were going through everything, and that's what made me really hone into like a certain style and a certain brand, because we were sat there and we were talking about our own brands, which I liked my brand before and everything, but as we were talking about it, I was like, I could adjust this, I could change this.
And we said this, didn't we, in that education episode? You never realise the holes in your own ship until you start trying to impart that wisdom onto somebody else.
And I feel like people really enjoyed that. But I came out of it with a new lease of life as well, thinking, do you know what? With all these things that I've told other people, I can go onto a website and probably make a few changes to it, and that led eventually to pretty much a full rebrand of my
But also then by doing that website rebuild, it led you in somewhat, or had definitely helped you along the way to receiving your biggest ever inquiries ever.
Yeah.
So I think leading from that leads a really nice kind of segue, doesn't it? Is that I think we should announce it now.
Yes.
That we are going to be doing that workshop again.
Yeah. So so the style and branding workshop that we did in May. We're now going to do that again. It's going to be the same workshop. So if you bought tickets last time, then you don't need to worry this time.
Well, you can come again if you want to. That's it. If you want to listen to us chat on the same topic and the same slides for another day, then you're more than welcome. But it might be a little bit
go through. We go through everything branding. So what did we talk about? We talked about. I did a big bit on website copy. Your bit was on like colours.
Colours, fonts, kind of aesthetics of website, kind of layout, and branding and marketing were the main bits of it. So we broke it down into two talks, and we had a branding talk in the morning, we had a lovely lunch in the middle, then we had a marketing talk in the afternoon, and then finished that with a website review. So if you would like us to look at your website, and also arguably when we do this again in November, it should be at the end of most people's season. So to try and get your website rebuilt or tidied up with the advice that we give, ready for the booking season the next year, it marginally might be better time than when we did it last time. Yeah,
because you've actually got time to implement the information that we give you. And I mean, a lot of people come away from that website review and sort of implemented some of the things that we pointed out. Brand wise, we were looking at like brand consistency and things like that when we were looking at people's websites, weren't we? And I feel like it went really well. We're really happy with it, so we're going to do it again. And that's going to be on November the 19th.
19th, yes. It's a Tuesday. It will be in Guildford again, the same venue we were at last time, because they were really great hosts to us. The food was really nice. We had a really cool space there, didn't we? And hopefully, geographically, it's quite an easy place for people to get to from a variety of corners.
It's very cosy.
Of the UK.
So it's Cosy Club in Guildford. It's where we did it last time. And it was a really nice space, wasn't it, to work in? Because it felt just not too businessy, and
that was the main thing. We didn't, because obviously we listen to this podcast hopefully, and you realise that we're not a kind of super formal thing. We didn't want like a kind of like a theatre or a conference suite kind of type thing. So there it is, literally a cozy club. You get to sit in a comfy armchair. You can get yourself a coffee or a drink or an alcoholic drink if you want to. We don't mind. And then obviously you'll get lunch as well, provided in your ticket. And then obviously all of the knowledge on branding and marketing that we can give.
Yeah, amazing. So November 19th, tickets will be available when this podcast goes out, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, at the moment, I think that's probably worth saying, that we're in a very odd position where we actually have episodes stacked up, which very rarely happens. Last year, we had to have a couple of gaps, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where kind of our schedules didn't line up or things just got too busy. But at the moment, we're having a really nice balance of having guests that are wanting to come on and talk to us, as well as us sitting down and having these conversations. And we are managing to kind of get to a point where we have episodes in the can, and so that we're already looking into the future of when we can get these out. So
because they're coming out so far in advance, it's hard for us to realise
to kind of figure out
if we're going to have everything confirmed and the page set up and everything by the time this comes out. But if it is, it'll be in the description.
But we're hoping so. It'll be in the description if it is. If not, obviously always keep an eye on our Instagram account. If you don't follow us at Wedding Capture Co, do so. And if you see like a little advert come up with our smiley faces on it, and with all the information to the workshop, the ticket link will be linked through our Instagram page as well.
So. And secondly, I wanted to tease our next workshop as well. So obviously, I don't want to milk the workshop bandwagon, but obviously we're doing one that we've done before because there was a lot of people that messaged us and said they did they wanted to come but couldn't make it, and I'm sure there'll be some new listeners to this that would want to come to that as well. But based on our last episode,
the last episode we recorded,
it was the
Reading the Room episode.
The Reading the Room episode. And again, that was something we were quite passionate about, which is storytelling, reading the room, capturing things in a natural, authentic way. And so we wanted to do a full workshop for photographers and videographers on storytelling with imagery. And we feel like that's something we can deliver to both photo and video together, and something that is going to help. If there's pain points for you in capturing the day, or maybe if you think you have to set up things that perhaps you would rather capture naturally, and we want to spread that knowledge of how we incorporate that reading the room style into our work.
Yeah, and I think the skills are really transferable, and that's something that is really important to both of us. Obviously, we are a podcast for both photographers and videographers, so we want to make sure that any education we give isn't just to one market. It's not purely video based, or it's not purely photo based. So although that workshop will be on reading the room, it will still be kind of very much talking about ways of seeing and actionable things that you can put in, rather than it being like a styled workshop or a kind of very practical thing. Like, we're not going to take to the streets and do street photography, I don't think, anyway. It's going to be much more about, say, kind of prompts and cues that we use, or basically just ways of seeing and things to notice on the wedding day, or how to spot out those moments and the ways that we do that. And so whether you take stills of it or video, the skills will be totally transferable.
Definitely. So that's, we're planning on having that in February, but we'll confirm dates, I think, in a future episode. So if you're interested, drop us a message as always, because it's nice to know that people are interested while we're booking everything, so that we can have an idea of who's coming. So
amazing. So now we've done like the catch up. Now we've done the sales pitch. I think we should now move into the absolute, like, the main topic, of the episode, of what the episode's going to be, which is kind of a really interesting one. Like, you brought it up and said that it was something you'd liked to do, and it's kind of going to be a little bit of a funny one for me. So we're going to talk today about second shooters.
I think we might have a different opinion on it. I know we have a different way of pushing it to couples.
Do you need one? Should you have one? I think that's kind of the talking about seconding, or the art of seconding, or being a second shooter, having a second shooter, which hopefully, if any of you follow me or know or have listened to other conversations that we've had, know that I don't actually use second shooters.
Yeah. And I push it on most couples, to be fair.
So we do naturally have that opinion or whilst it's different, I think I've done just over 350 weddings, and I've only ever used seconds twice. The first time that I used a second was probably my second or third wedding, and it probably scarred me to never use one again. And it wasn't until back in 2021 where I had a client at a venue that I really, really wanted to book in. They were adamant that they wanted a certain shot that only would have been achievable if I had a second. And so at that point I used a second, and that experience was much better, I must say. It was, but not enough to make me want to look for seconds going forward or offering that. And at present, it might change in the near future, but at the moment I don't actually offer a package with a second shooter.
Okay. Why do you think that you can capture everything that you could possibly need with one shooter, or is it just the fact that you'd rather run a business where you're not relying on finding a second shooter?
That's some of it. I think I probably, if you laid me on a couch and spoke to somebody who had a psychology degree, would tell you that I have control issues, and that I like to get in my car and drive home from a wedding knowing that I have captured everything that I need to. And if anything goes wrong at that point, it's due to my fault. I have nobody to hide behind. I have nobody else to blame. I have nobody else's skill levels to put trusts in other than my own. But I would be naive to think that there is stuff that is missed. There's no way that, I can spend all of my time kind of in two places at once. I can't. There's definitely ways around it, and I definitely have hacks at certain venues where I feel that I can get both those angles in the ceremony. On an aisle walk, if you're in a one venue wedding, and as long as both parties are getting ready at the same place, I can do both elements of both prep. But there are obviously no doubt that when I take a couple off for a couple shoot, albeit 5 minutes, there's still stuff back at the candids that I'm missing. So there would be a pluses to having a second, but I think in terms of how much that I move around on the wedding, I feel that I would end up with my second in my photos quite a lot. Finding people of a quality that I would want to bring and represent my brand at a wedding, to find them 12, 15, 20 times over or something, and keep finding them, that would, I think, annoy me. And also I think for me is my style isn't particularly like avant-garde or unique to me, but at the same time, if you get another experienced photographer in, they still have a certain style. So when you deliver a gallery, that consistency issue is still going to be there. Even if they shoot on the same cameras and the same two lenses that I do, there's still going to be a stylistic difference between the work that is mine and the work that is theirs. And I feel like in photo that is a lot more obvious than it is in video.
Yeah, it would be quite interesting to see if you were doing bride prep and you've got all these like little moments between the bride and Nan, and like putting the bracelet on and things like that, and then you got like a second shooter who was doing groom prep and like made the groom like lay on the sofa and like put his hand in a certain way. And
they do lots of I've sold to that couple, don't worry, like everything's really natural, go about your day. And then they're like taking them outside and making them walk up and down, and then like give the groom the bumps and this sort of stuff, and like come on, work it for the camera, do this for me, and they're like, we were not sold.
This is not
That's kind of, and I would feel like kind of then embarrassed if that was kind of in the feedback, especially when it wasn't particularly something which had my doing.
But that's about finding, from experience, it's about finding people who are on your vibe anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that like a friend of ours second shoots for me quite a lot. And he's very much on my vibe. And I know that like we shoot in very similar way. I recommend him every time I'm not available for a wedding, because I know that even though our end result is different, on the day we're going to be providing the same experience to our couples. And so it didn't take him long to get used to the way that I work, and you know that now is a sort of special relationship where I can definitely trust him with like second shooting, but also to step up to first if something that goes wrong, or if I'm not there for something.
And I think that's just it though, isn't it? Like, you've built a relationship now with him, that he knows the certain things that you like, and so because you've used him as a second shooter multiple times, he started to see that your ways of kind of thinking, or the way that you go about things. Where I think if I was to, and again, maybe this is naively so, and I'm sure many people in the comments can tell me that I'm wrong, or you can probably, that if I was like, oh, I need 20 seconds this year. And then I go to my trusty people that I trust, and they go, oh, we've got our own bookings on those dates.
That's the thing.
And then I'm having to go into the Facebook groups or seek, friends of friends for recommendations, or get to a point where I'm that desperate because I've promised this couple a second, I can't find anybody, that I have to maybe even meet a stranger for the first time on a day that I trust, from the portfolio they've sent, will do a good job for me. I think that would give me so much fear going into that day, going, well, I don't know who this person is. Hope they deliver. That would give me enough worry that it's just easier to do it by myself.
Anxiety to the day. I
think, or I'd end up running around and try and do their job for them anyway. Because I'd just be too worried.
I think if it wasn't for him, and obviously my wife, they shoot like probably an equal amount of weddings with me, then I would have trouble, I think, because obviously, like you say, other than them two and maybe a couple of other people, I've not really had many other people second shoot for me, so it's been people that are very close to me and sort of know me well and things, rather than, like you say, just going onto a Facebook page and hoping a good videographer messages and
that's it. And I guess some of it, I guess, is depends on kind of your journey into the industry, or kind of how you go about it, because, and I don't think this is the right way at all, but when I shot my first wedding or weddings, I didn't second shoot. I'd been in this industry a number of years before I did my first second shooter job, and that was to help a friend out who needed 2 photographers. So by then I was already an established first shooter, and I had never come from seconding. So I had to kind of learn to go, okay, like, well, if they're there, I need to be in the places that they're not, and then kind of always actively look to be the alternative. So I'm always providing something different. Where I think if you start seconding, I imagine it's a very good way, and I feel like I would have learned certain kind of tricks or ways of getting into things in the day, where to kind of suggest that couples move certain timings to make things happen. I would have picked up a lot of that a lot quicker and probably made less mistakes on my own weddings. But at the same time, I kind of feel that then I didn't get set in my ways, where I see some shooters and you go, oh, you can tell they seconded for this person for this many years because they've just become a clone. They've never kind of had to think for themselves or be told that that's the way that you shoot.
They've just always gone
the way
to
that it has to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You do see that, and I never second shot either to start off with. And like I'm a believer that if I did second shoot when I first started, I'd probably be charging more than I am now, because like you say, you probably miss some of those mistakes and skip some of those stepping stones that it takes to get that experience, because you're already learning off someone who's experienced and not just watching a YouTube video.
But I think kind of maybe in like an arty way, I'm kind of quite
glad that you've got your own direction.
That I could say that. Whilst I'd learned things from my mistakes that I maybe would have learned quicker, my journey has also been incredibly kind of pure and instinctive. And because I've learned from my mistakes, I've learned those things the hard way, rather than just maybe a more senior photographer. Don't do that, kid. And I go, well, why? Like, I very much, or maybe some of the things that I do, I would be told, oh, you can't do that, or you don't do that. Because I didn't know any better, I did it. And now that's kind of become just part and parcel of how I work. And I think that probably leads you on to the next bit of who you second shoot for when you're starting out. Is probably incredibly important.
I'm a big advocate for second shooting, for video and for photo, really. But like, I think I put this somewhere in my notes, but there's a lot of photography styles out there where I think having someone to do like your bit as the first photographer. Yeah, I was wondering if that was in the shot.
Sorry, if anyone's just listening, I left my Fanta bottle for my meal deal on the table,
I can't see the shot,
and I could just see a little blue cap and like somewhere appearing on the screen, and so I just had to move it.
Obviously, like, there's photographers that, unlike you, will set up a little bit more. And so that takes more time. And so while you're doing that, you're missing out on a lot of other stuff. And so having a second shooter just dedicated to candids and like the other stuff does make a lot of sense. But I feel like, even though I think you would still benefit from a second shooter if you had someone you could trust and yada yada, I do feel like because you spend 5 minutes on the couple shoot, 10 minutes on groups, 5 minutes getting details, what's that, 20 minutes out of a day where you're not available to capture candid stuff? Like that's,
and I think that's it. But then I like to think that style has become that.
Yeah.
Because I don't use a second.
Yeah.
And I kind of pride myself on it. I will try to be in as many places as I can, or I like to spend as much time with. I want you to spend as much time with your guests as you can, but also me to spend part of your time as a group, rather than I can't afford to spend a 45-minute couple shoot because I would miss so much of the day, and for other reasons I don't think you need that long and the rest of it. But
so when you're working with me, do you get less candidates? Because I'm always like
maybe, but then again, but that also amazes me sometimes that if I do a second in job with some people, they'll still say to you, "Oh no, you can come along on the couple shoot because then you can just get a different angle at that." And it's like, but what's going on back there?
What about
like, or I think even I'd be the other way is things that I feel are quite repeatable or quite safe.
Yeah,
I would almost want my second to do that. And I was spoken to this on the other day, and they thought it was really funny. I was like, I think, well, if I had complete freedom and I had a second, I'd probably make them do my groups.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Because I prefer to shoot candid. Selfishly, it's those little moments and the actual, like, those stuff, which excites me as a shooter far more. Yeah. And I also think there's not really a lot of scope that you can go wrong shooting group photos.
No.
As long as you get all the people in them and you tick off the list that I've given you.
Yeah.
Like, there doesn't need to be a great deal of creativity. Like I said to you, well, look, go there. Like, these are the people you need. Just crack on. And I can just have a wonderful time storytelling and doing my bit.
Yeah.
And they can worry about getting Nan in the right place for the group shot and stuff like that.
That's a very good way of thinking about it. Because when you said about having the second shooter do the safe shots, it's kind of the opposite to how I've been doing it with Josh. Really, is that so? I'll be like, so for me, for example, I shoot everything on 50mm for a couple of shoots, right?
Yeah.
And I'll have my gimbal and like I'll have a couple of shots that just have a go-to. So like, wide, medium, tight of couple. If they're walking, it'll be like, waist up or something, or holding the hands up. And then, from directly in front. Yeah. And I'll try every time I won't necessarily always need these shots, but they're the shots I'll be thinking of when I'm like, have I nailed the couple shoot? Have I got this nice shot of this? Have I got them in this third, like looking at each other and laughing or whatever? But then like with Josh, instead of saying, stay back and get candids, it depends on how long we've got to get candids in the first place. But it's been like he'll come along with an 85mm and a monopod and be able to get really creative with it because I'm thinking about my safe shots. Yeah. While he goes and gets creative with the 85 and like gets behind a bush and gets some foreground.
Because you know that safe stuff is being covered because you're doing it.
I'm covering it.
You're giving him that freedom where you kind of think, well, if it's your job. Yeah. Like, I know from kind of my way that the stuff that I like to sell myself on is that kind of unexpected. Like a first kiss shot is kind of a boring shot. There's one at every wedding. Yeah. Like it's kind of stuff that is going to appear. It's those little kind of moments which kind of that you look for, which you need time to look for, which are harder to get when you have to kind of get the expected. Yeah. Where so to kind of have a second, but then I'm aware that if you need to work with something that you really trusted or shared your vision, to know that they're going to come back to you with an SD card full of group shots shot on the same focal length in the same natural style that you do them. Yeah. But then for me to go like finish a ceremony, like you've got 2 hours now to just look and wander and shoot. Great.
I know, same. Yeah. I get a little bit frustrated at the weddings where there's too much going on that you can't. Yeah, like there was a wedding I did a few weeks ago where there was so much, like everything was planned one after the other, and I was like, all I want to do is get candids because like I'm just getting this next bit that's just for the gram and this next bit that's for the gram, and all I want to do is go and film your guests just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, you just feel like there's so much going on that you essentially are being given the shot list. Yeah, and it's a list of events. Yeah, it's still though, well, we need shots from this and shots from this and shots from this, and it's like, but the best stuff happens when nothing happens. Yeah, so kind of kind of get like a second or even like a second first. Do you know what I mean? Like someone that you can trust to go, well, you do that. Yeah. Like I'm going to do this, or the things that you normally miss. Like I know normally, like in a morning, I, hang around bridal prep, pop out and do some other little bits, come back for the dress going on. Then I'm there for reveals. And then normally at that point, I'm looking at what's going on. I need to get out of the ceremony room now because guests are probably about to go in or are already in. So I kind of wave the bride off and go, you've now got 5 minutes to yourself before you go to your interview. Next time I see her, she's coming down the aisle. Yeah. Where I know that as soon as I leave that room, that's when probably her nerves are at an absolute peak. Yeah. and to know that there'd be somebody else over there shooting the groom and shooting the guests, taking their seats and stuff.
So you don't,
and I could stay with her,
yeah.
and I've spent that last 3 hours building the trust up so that I've earned my spot in that room to be the fly on the wall. I'm then just going back to like someone wheeling Nan out in a wheelchair to find a seat for the ceremony, and I miss all of that.
Yeah.
Where if I had someone that I knew that I could trust to go, well, you get that, you can be there for this bit, because just a pacing groom at the top is kind of, it's, you know, like I could almost allow myself to take more risks.
Yeah.
I could become much more of a risk taker because I know that I have a clone doing the safe stuff.
That's a big deal as well, I think, is, you know, I've put that for video, but like equally, like you said, for photo, it's not about the amount of footage that's captured. Like when people say to me, these days, when people say to me, what's the difference between having one videographer and two videographer? I'll say this. I'll say, it's not about having tons more footage. What it's about is if you get one videographer, you'll get a good amount of everything. Yeah. So you'll get like a good amount of candids. You'll get a good amount of bride prep, some groom prep if it's close. You'll get a couple of detailed shots of your dinner room and things like that. But you'll just get a good amount of it. If you get two shooters, what you'll get is a lot more like natural moments, because there'll be one shooter pretty much dedicated towards capturing the natural moments during reception drinks, especially if it's Kate. Like Kate will pretty much be on reception drinks the entire time, capturing all those candid bits. So you get a lot more of that, but also you'll get better shots because I've got time while Kate's or Josh's or whoever it is going to be doing candids to go into the wedding breakfast room and set up something nice and like get a nice shot of it.
If you need to balance the gimbal to get that really nice sweep, wherever you know you've got 5 minutes for guests are coming in, it's literally like, I've got it.
Or do a few more group shots with the bridesmaids and groomsmen or something and not feel guilty about not being over here. Because so what I say to couples now is with one shooter, you get like really good shots, a small amount of very good shots of everything in your 6 minute film or whatever it is. With two videographers, you get all of that, plus a lot more depth into the candid story, like the story of your guests and not just a story of you.
Yeah, because essentially in that sense, it is a numbers game, isn't it? If I turn up to shoot 10 hours at a wedding, they get what I can produce in 10 hours. Where if two of you turn up and shoot for 10 hours, you've got essentially 20 hours of that day. If 6 people turn up, you've got, you know, it goes on again, doesn't it?
But not necessarily, because with a video, a lot of it is second shooter packing down, setting up tripod while you're doing this stuff.
That was kind of where I was going to go before. Like I was kind of having a second in video, I think is very different in photography, and I've said this kind of jokingly to you and other videographers a lot of times. Like if you get that dreaded like speeches in between courses, I know that my setup for that speech is putting 2 cameras back on my hold fast, taking the lens caps off, and I'm ready to go. Takes seconds. Where if you're sat there eating your chicken wrapped in Parma ham and a wedding coordinator sticks their head round the door and goes, groom's going to speak in 5 minutes, that proceeds to you like literally having kittens and throwing tripods up, miking people up with the other hand.
Or you sat in the room and you hear ding, 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 and it's like game over.
Like, that's terror. So I think for you, that second shooter almost that's not an accurate job description, is it? Is that second is a second shooter, and they're shooting more, but they are also assisting you in having to say put up tripods, mic people up, you know, all of those things that if you spend, you know, and we spoke about this in a couple of episodes ago, is your favorite part of a wedding day is the first 10 minutes after the ceremony. Where if you're working by yourself and you're moving from a church to another venue, you're missing that absolute like golden kind of like piece of natural, because you're worried that the vicar's going to lock your tripods in the church and you're spending that time taking it all down and say, or leaving cameras recording, because if you know there's a payoff, isn't there, one with the other. If you can leave that person to go, but you pack this down and I'm going to go and do this, where with photography there's not that element. So really, for the most part, if you hire 2 shooters, they both are shooting for most of that element. Because you can, like you say, after church wedding, you just walk out of your cameras and you're there. Whereas I recently did one where like, I sort of recommended 2 people because it was a church, but I mean, I normally only do weddings, church weddings with 2 people, but this is last minute booking. I didn't want to like try and upset them or anything, so I was kind of like, okay, let's just do it with 1 and see how it works out. But I know that I missed so much after that, because not only did the church ceremony, they also walked then because the venue's quite close, they also walked there. So I literally
was inside packing up tripods, and everyone had already walked to the other spot. So then I had to drag all my stuff over, find a place to put it. By the time I come out, like reception drinks was well underway. All the hugging was done and everything was done. But I had to grab my stuff, otherwise that church is going to be locked up.
Or even like logistically, if you'd driven then, because the amount of stuff that you had, you could say, well, I'm walking back with a couple. Like, get your second to chuck all the stuff in the car and drive back and meet us there. So then you're there waiting to get the wide as we're coming up to the venue. And you've got that benefit. So I think maybe I'm trying to justify myself that I prove that I don't need a second.
No, I think
but at the same time, I think that having a second for video is a lot more of an essential than it is in photography. I'm not saying, I know there's some people that love it, and I think to have that kind of, to have just a kind of an ally on the day, or someone that is shooting from another angle for you, you've got someone else kind of on your side. Or if you're someone that is a little bit more nervous, to kind of have someone there kind of reassuring you or bouncing ideas off of them. If it's someone you work with all the time, I imagine you do kind of really get into a flow of working together. And I do really like that.
You do,
But I think when I know that I've been a second at weddings where there's been me, the main photographer, 2 videographers. And I kind of think this is just a bit much. Like the guests are so camera aware because there's 4 of us floating around.
We do a lot of
with
those,
it. That I kind of just felt this is a bit much. Where I kind of like being, again, I'm far from a fly on the wall. People know I'm there, but I quite like that. Some of the weddings that I shoot, I'm the only person.
But because shooting. You don't do second shooting and you don't really hire second shooters, you won't see many weddings like that. But I'd say the majority of weddings we turn up to is 2 photographers and 2 videographers. So I see that's my norm. And if I turn up and it's just me and just a photographer, that's a weird wedding for me. Like that's odd, sort of thing.
And I guess maybe that's it, because I don't do it. It feels more different to me.
And you might feel like the guest.
Or maybe the couples that I book actively book me because I am just one person. So they feel that I'm not so much of an intrusion on their day. Or because I spend so much time getting to know my couples on the day, they put their faith in me. Where if I was like, oh, here's this guy that I just hired off the internet who has a nice shiny portfolio, he's going to go and shoot a groom prep for you. But it's like, well, we spent the weeks and months getting to know you. Who's this guy? Like, there's an element. There's a model, isn't there, for everything? And I'm definitely not saying that I'm right and everybody else is wrong, because there are, without a doubt, things that I miss by only being me. But I think there is a model, or there's kind of pluses and minuses. Definitely for both, and it's what you feel comfortable with, I guess.
I think it's a lot harder for you logistics wise anyway. Even if you decided, oh yeah, let's give it a go. Giving it a go would mean you've got to find 20 second shooters, like pluck them out of thin air.
And I wouldn't know until potentially next year.
You probably wouldn't know till last minute, because most of the people who you'd want second shoot from you are busy with their own businesses and might want to book it out far enough in advance. So logistically it's harder. Like, the reason that I've based my business around it is because I've got my wife Kate who can second shoot for me, and you know, we've had that stability of, we don't necessarily need to find, and more recently we have, because Kate's become more and more busy with work and things like that. So but you know, I've probably have Kate, then Josh, then a couple of other people that I can call on, but other than that, like you know,
but I think you've built yourself, and it's incredibly clever, but incredibly nice model for you. For all the things that give me kind of worries about it, you've kind of got covered. Like in the fact that if your weddings are on a weekend, you know your second shooter because you're married to her. So you'd like to think that you function fairly well as a couple. Like you'd like to think so, which is, you know, kind of, you know what I mean? As in your life you do. So they would know kind of what you're thinking. So you don't kind of have that synergy from the off. But now that, like, obviously Kate's got busier with her own job, to only say to Josh, for example, for most of the bookings that I book you as a second shooter for midweeks, you know the chances of Josh having a booking on that same Wednesday in June as you is probably slim. So he knows that he's still actively going to get, he can still function as a photographer, videographer that he is, and have his own bookings. But with that added bonus that if you can give him X amount of weddings midweeks, it kind of it gives you kind of stability in that sense, doesn't it? Is that the chances of him being available midweek are higher, so that you can use the same person that's not Kate all the time.
And you build up that relationship, and like I said, like we shoot in a similar way anyway, but you build up that it comes to the point where I don't even need to say anything. We just work, and it's
and your trust level grows in somebody, doesn't it? Like you said, you know, the first couple of times that you worked with him, that kind of you were like, oh, I feel mean for him doing that because that's kind of a first shooter's role. But then when he came back and you're like, well, he's done it as well as I would anyway. The next time that he goes, oh, do you just want me to do this? There's no hesitation. It's like, yeah, do it.
Also, shout out to Josh, because on Saturday there was a father of the bride reaction, and the father of the bride wasn't around, so the photographer was like, "I'll go and get him." And I realised that the ceremony's like 5 minutes, so I quickly went to another room, set up a tripod, and then came back again. And the dad was standing next to the bride, and I was like, oh no, I've missed it. So I just sort of stood there like with my camera, like knowing I'd missed it. And then I turned around and Josh is in the corner of the room. That's a massive grin on his face.
Like a vision with his cape blowing in the wind. Like, I've got it. Don't worry. I feel like he gets mentioned so much on this
my
pod.
jaw dropped, and I was like, oh my god, like he captured that. So luckily he'd walked in the room just before the father of the bride reaction was about to happen. I realised I wasn't there and quickly got his camera and started recording. But oh my god, I can't believe I would have missed that moment. Like,
and again, I've had that. I've had those moments where you can say you've gone to go and do something else because you think, oh, this is happening. You run back and go, oh no, I've missed this. Or that. And again, there are physically things that you just can't get to when you are a solo shooter. And you've shared stories of time, and particularly with video where you got couples that want to do letter readings, and the groom rocks up at the venue half an hour before the ceremony and goes, I'll bring my letter now, mate. And you're like, well, your bride's getting in her dress. And just don't think. Where if there's two of you, you divide and conquer, and you move on. Whereas me, I have to go, no, you've missed it, or no, you need to do this, or that's just a no.
You have to do it around it.
That's hopefully something which my couples are aware of when they hire one. And I do have quite a few of my initial calls where couples do say to you, oh, is there two of you, or is there the option to have two of you? And I have to say at that point, unfortunately, no, but for all of these reasons that we've just spoken about, in terms of consistency and your kind of personability and all those reasons, that's the reason that I prefer to work alone. But they know going into it, they have to have a very realistic expectation that I can't physically get to everything because I am just one person.
Be in two places
at the same time, I've found ways and means, like say in certain venues, I know that if I get to a ceremony and I can get down the sides, so an outdoor ceremony for me is great, or a venue where like the chairs don't go to the wall. If they really want the groom reaction, I know that I can, as the guest stand, I can stand at the back of the aisle. So the bride walks in, I shoot that, I turn round, shoot down the aisle. As soon as I've got the groom looking down the aisle and done that first look's everything, isn't it really? Like 10 seconds. Once he's looked and reacted,
job done.
I know that I can just drop my cameras, I can run down the side of the guests,
get her comments,
and then still be at the top of the aisle with a 35 at my eye before she's even in touching distance of the groom. And I have quite a few venues that I work at quite often that have outdoor ceremonies, which I do that with. So that's normally the two main pinch points that people definitely want to for. Doing both preps in the morning and having that bit where they go, oh, my, the groom or husband or to be or whatever is definitely going to be more emotional, going to react more than I will walking down. So I really want that. But I wouldn't want to feel that I give up not getting the bride shot to get the groom. So then you kind of you rely on the fact that the place they've picked allows you to do that.
Whereas getting that groom reaction in video with one person is a ball ache. Like, I think we're all using sort of 10-foot light stands at the moment to get over the guests so that you can get the groom, which, most of the time it works, but it's not the prettiest shot, but you still get it, if you know what I mean. Sometimes I feel like there's no right or wrong to it, personally. Like, as someone who offers two, I do obviously advocate for two. But I don't think there's a right or wrong for it as long as you set, like you say, expectations. And if you, like, I imagine when you're going through the schedule of the day with a couple, if they're like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and then the groom's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be getting ready at the same time, but I want you to photograph it. You're like, well, no.
And I think that's what I want to do is if we have that conversation, I'll be quite honest in that first call, and I'll be honest, sometimes it has probably cost me jobs when you have a couple that come back and go, really love chatting to you, but I'm really sorry. Having both preps is incredibly important to us. We don't feel that's, he doesn't want to give up getting ready at his mum's house for her to be at home.
I
just can't make it work. You spoke to me about some jobs. And at that point, I've got to weigh up going, well, how badly do I want that job over how badly do I want to work by myself? And that's a conversation, I think, which I need to have. And maybe as I start to move on and maybe start to shoot bigger weddings, it might be inevitable that I have to go down that road of looking to have a second. Because I think, at the moment, probably most of the weddings that I shoot end up being around 60, 70 guests max. Because most of the people then that book me have probably slightly smaller weddings and that's still realistically for me to capture a large point of that. Where if I get to a point where I kind of start going to bigger venues, or people start wanting to book me for weddings that are 100 guests plus, I'm not sure at that point then that physically I'm only one man. I would not be able to capture enough of everything without doing it with a second.
Yeah.
And then that, say, comes to a crossroads then, isn't it? Where I go, well, do I get a second, or do I stay as I am?
Do you stick to your, like, do you, like, you know, say no to that one in
and
order to get
then
a smaller
see how
one?
harmful in the end that would end up being to my business overall? Or do I stick to the end that I'm actually getting the pinnacle of these 60 to 70 guest weddings, and that become my niche? That because I want to get that close and be and work, you know, kind of that
get to know them all, be a bit more intimate with it. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Completely unrelated, but it's quite funny. Is I spoke to a couple recently, and they told us who their photographer was for their wedding, and they were like, "Oh yeah, and we're thinking of getting another photographer as well to come and join him." And I was like, please ask him first if he's okay with another photographer coming along and shooting as well.
What, this has not happened to me, but I know someone that it has happened to. I probably shouldn't name names. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. But he had this. So he went to shoot a wedding at a registry office, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So got to the registry office, been booked by the groom to be there. Rocks up. There's a lady taking photos at the front. So the registrar comes in and goes, "Oh, can all the guests take their seats, please?" So he was like, "This woman's still here." So wandered over and was like, "Oh, do you want to go sit down in your seat?" Because he assumed that she was a guest.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh no, I'm a photographer." And he was like, "Funny, that's how am I." And the bride then booked
both of them
because the groom wanted the kind of more natural documentary stuff. He booked the guy that I know, and then because the bride wanted these really fancy like editorial bridal portraits, she just booked someone else to do her portraits for her. Yeah. And then obviously they couldn't say anything because the groom stood there and the bride was down the aisle. So it's like we kind of both awkwardly stood next to each other and shot the ceremony. And then it wasn't to the end. They were like, "Oh well, yeah, well we love this bits of your work and love that of your work." So we just thought like you could stay with the guest and do this, and then like she'll take us out and do.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And he was like, "But do you not think to tell us in the lead up?"
By the way, there was someone else doing the same
job. Oh, do we have to? It's our wedding. Like we can just hire a light company.
Yeah.
And it's like mad. And I think at that point I would not have known what to say.
I'm finding more and more stories like that about video because of the rise of content creation. I'm not talking about content creators in your traditional sense, but because of the rise of content, of everyone's got to have their content, the makeup artist, the singer, the saxophonist, everyone wants their content. I'm seeing a lot of stories recently of I rocked up to a wedding and there was a guy with a gimbal and a Sony and like just filming the wedding day, and it's like, what's going on? Is oh yeah, I'm just filming, but I'm doing a promo video for the saxophonist, but I've got to get the whole wedding as well, make sure I get, and that's not it. And I read a post very recently, and I don't know where it was, but I'm sure other videographers would have read it as well recently, of a guy who turned up to a wedding, like filmed the morning and everything, got to the confetti shot, and suddenly there was a guy next to him with a gimbal and a Sony. It's like, what are you doing there? And it's like, yeah, I'm filming for the caterer. But I feel like I've got to capture some of the wedding day as well. I'm going to get some clips. And at that point, the videographer's gone, I really, like, we need our space as a photographer and videographer who's capturing the wedding. And the guy's gone, I don't need to talk to you. I'm working for the caterer, not for you, so you don't get to tell me what to do. And it's like, apparently that went through the day as a bit of he came along on the couple shoot and everything. And
I think it's mad, isn't it? Because you can almost imagine the couple receiving an email just going, oh, look, almost the caterer bigging up them, look, because your wedding sounds so fantastic. Get a friend of mine to come along. We'd really love it. Like, your wedding's going to be, we'd love to feature your wedding as kind of, a portfolio piece. Do you mind if we have someone come along, so that we're not bothering your photographer for all of the stuff? If we could just have someone come along, they'll only take a few shots of the plates and the stuff from our perspective.
And the couple's like, yeah, sounds lovely.
And they're quite blissfully going, yeah, be fine, yeah, quite happy.
Thanks for the compliment on our wedding. Yeah.
And then realising not that the impact... that has. And I must admit, I got approached a little while ago by a florist who said the same. Look, we're doing one of the biggest weddings that we've ever done. Luckily, it was like, I don't need you to be any part of the wedding. Like, you'll be here and gone before the wedding even starts. But we're going to set the ceremony space up and the dinner space up in the morning. Yeah. So more or less, but we don't want to rely on just the photographer for their day because they'll only get the token few shots of the room. Yeah. Would you be open to coming for an hour in the morning and doing this for us? And I was booked for another wedding that day, so I couldn't go anyway. Yeah. But I think in that instance, I think I would say I'm happy to, but one, contact the photographer to tell them that I'm coming, and that I won't get in their way, and kind of I'm not photographing the day, I'm just photographing stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, like more or less I need to be been and
make
gone.
it very clear what your purpose is.
Yeah, before that starts. And again, I think that's the idea of a couple just booking 2 first shooters and not telling them is far more alarming than having people there shooting kind of just for content for suppliers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does happen. And then the issues that we've spent the episode talking about, kind of people getting the other way or conflict of interests and the rest of it.
Yeah.
I imagine that when you've got 2 people trying to work together, there's still a slight conflict.
Yeah.
But if you've got 2 people actively working against each other,
that's
a whole different, that's a whole nother level, isn't it?
Yeah. I also find it like easier as a videographer who works a lot with 2 photographers, easier to balance that, because there are photographers out there who work together, and there are either a husband and wife team where they work together a lot, and then you'll get like, oh, so we're going to take these group of people out this side, and we're going to take these group of people out this side. As one videographer, I'm like, so I've got to choose what I want to capture then, basically. And I find that really hard. And so part of my education of couples has been like, these days has been like, if you've got 2 photographers, and bear in mind that sometimes they'll be capturing 2 things at once.
Yeah.
I'll be with the bride, the other one snuck off to the groom, done the groom prep before I've even got there, because they've got 2 of them and they might as well. By the time I've got their groom preps done, because I'm only one person. So if you've got 2 photographers, you might want to consider 2 videographers.
I think that's just some of it, isn't it? Is that, and we have 2 episodes on photo versus video where we ask each other bugbears, and that we cover quite a lot of it in that, as well as the kind of specific episodes that we've done on ceremonies and speeches.
They were good episodes.
And that stuff. Yeah. But I think sometimes, and I've been a second, I've seconded 4 people. I always kind of have it in my mind is that I will photograph whatever that person tells me to photograph. But I think being a second photographer, you need to, one, make sure that you are adding value to the day, not just getting in the way.
Yeah.
Is my shot actually going to be used? Is there a point to it?
Yeah.
Because the one that I've never understood, which I've seen in the past, is they go, oh, we've got 2 photographers, 2 videographers, like confetti. Oh, one will be at the front as they're walking towards us, and then the other one will just follow behind. And it's like, what can you actually get at that moment of the bride and groom's backs walking down an aisle, which is going to be that amazing that it's worth getting in your colleague's shot for?
It's funny because me and Josh did this the other day.
Well, I don't understand it.
Okay, so it was maybe slightly different because they were coming out of a building. He was in the building getting a shot through the door of the arch and then walking out. So you got the silhouette.
But if he stays static,
you can't see
in the doorway, you can't see him because of the light.
Yeah.
But when you get those people that or like an aisle walk, as they're walking back down the aisle, the other photographer stayed at the top, and they're just in the background with their lens photographing that. You're both in each other's shot.
Yeah, I've shot a few
weddings like this
year.
During a ceremony, it's different because there is a very different viewpoint from the back as there is to the front. But when in like movement moments like this, I just don't think it's necessary. Or for me, when you see seconds that go, oh yeah, you can come out in the couple shoot with us, because then you can shoot on a long lens and I can shoot on a short. I just kind of think, well, you are there to add value to that couple. They've booked you because they want a different angle of this. So there's no point in you see 2 photographers photographing the same thing.
Yeah,
that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I've worked with a few photographers this year where it's been like, the one will be beside me in the confetti and the other one will be behind the couple just waving around in my shot, and I'm like, have you added value to like, your photographer friend can AI it out, but like you just get in the same shot from, I don't know, it is a bit of that.
Well, again, it's that for me, kind of, if I look at it from someone that doesn't use seconds, is you have like photographer number 1 does the safe. They go about their day as they would as if they were there by themselves. They're at the top of the aisle for this, they're this and that. And then you get this person, and whichever way you want to do it, because like I said in the earlier bit, I'd want to make my second do the safe stuff, and I want to go and do all the risky stuff. You get to that point where you go, do you know what? This could be a really cool shot. But if I don't get it, I've got nothing.
Yeah.
Like, imagine like you've got a bride leaving bridal prep. And I've seen the shot before where, say, like the photographer stays in the bridal prep room, and they're like out of the window, like looking down shot out of the building as they got the bride walking out and getting in the car.
Yeah.
It's a really cool photo.
Yeah.
But you technically need to be with the bride, photographer getting in the car. Yeah. So if you stay up there and it looks rubbish, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
Where if you're then got your second, or you're the person who got someone else down there, you can afford to take that risk.
Yeah.
So I did like a second job last year with somebody, and so they had a confetti tunnel. And the venue was really cool. It was like a 360 like seat thing at like an ancient site. So it was like a ceremony space, but it had a living roof. So it was like built in the ground.
Yeah.
And then essentially like a hill. So they came out of the ceremony
yeah.
space. They had a tunnel either side.
Yeah.
So the photographers like the people walking towards them.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, there's no point me being in the back of their shot because it's just going to look rubbish. So I climbed on top of the hill.
Yeah.
So I stood on literally the roof of their wedding venue, essentially, albeit a mud hill.
Yeah.
Put a really wide lens on, which I'd never use a 17mm to shoot up confetti if it was me ever.
Yeah.
But then got this almost really cool like overhead shot of them kind of walking out, all the guests in a line.
That's what I was saying. He got the safe shot. You got the creative shot in that sense.
But I wasn't just that guy loitering in the back doing or stood next to her with both of us arm in arm getting the same photo. It's almost like if you've got that second, you've got that scope to take risks.
Yeah.
Like use it rather than just get 2 safe shots.
I like how you can tell a story of different things that happen, like with some second videographers, I would send them with the groom, and they could be with the groom all morning and get much more of a cohesive picture of not just the bits that I have to capture on my own, where they whack on a tie and jacket next to a window, but they're also getting the groom with the groomsmen sorting things out, maybe going to the ceremony and putting the things on the chairs, or playing pool or whatever it might be. There's more of a cohesive story of the groom party as well. Or I might be with the groom and the second shoot might be with the bride. Right, and you get both sides of that morning. And then things like when you got a sunset shoot, which is probably a little bit longer because you spend more time on it and go to the right spots and things like that. You've got then your evening guests who are a little bit, your guests who are a little bit more tipsy and a little bit more open from the evening. A lot of that stuff you can miss. So having someone there to get all of that is beneficial. But equally, I've worked with people who their second shooter will be by their side at all times. And it's like, they're shooting the same lenses, same everything, but they're just by their side. And they're just there maybe like, oh, can you sort out the dress for me?
Yeah, they're playing that numbers game in the, like, if we've just got double of everything, it can't go wrong.
Yeah. Like literally spraying the same, like 70-200 shot from a slightly different angle.
It just finds a waste. But I think, you've just said then, and that's probably something I'd not considered, that I reckon that a lot of my couples ask me, do I have a second? Because they want that groom prep or they want that 2 angles to the ceremony. Where I think one of the times that I would find most beneficial to have a second would be in the evening. Because if I get a wedding where sunset lines up with like shortly after the dance, a lot of times I'm dragging a couple are coming off of a fairly packed dance floor. And then by the time that we've come back from sunset, because the bride and groom aren't there anymore, they've danced for a little bit and then gone on, they've just emptied off. So I might have got to wait longer for that dance floor to recover or me to hang around to get more dancing. Where I kind of feel that although the bride and groom wouldn't be in it, if I wanted some dancing photos of guests enjoying the DJ or the band or whatever, I'd probably have enough by the time I came back from sunset shoot.
It's done.
If I'd have left my second shooter photographing, like say the kind of tipsy dancing of that first bit, I'd have enough that we could go, do you know what, we're probably good to go home now.
Yeah. There's a lot of like little anxiety points, and I'm sure like your style doesn't require it as much for some other styles, and I'm sure that video probably benefits more from it than photo.
Definitely.
And my last thing I wanted to say was that I think sometimes for video, you don't necessarily need a second shooter. You sometimes just need an assistant.
I was literally about to say that would be my closing point. Okay. And I think I've said it, like we worked, 2 weddings this year so far? Yeah. And we've got 2 more coming up. And I think I've said to you both times, since from working with you, where I think we had a wedding where we were in a real pinch and I helped you put some tripods up and stuff. And I was like, do you know what? You almost, you don't, in this instance, if it is a smaller wedding, you probably don't need 2 shooters. Yeah. But just to have someone who can literally just be a mica upper, a tripod putter upper, go get my lights out the car person, just a general assistant. Yeah. And if that's someone that wants to enter the industry, I think if they did that for you a couple of times a year, they would have so much more of an oversight about how you go about a wedding day, how you structure things, the things that you do look for, the moments that you do get. Yeah. Even if you hadn't brought a camera with you, you'd have so much more, like...
Just turns up an hour before the ceremony, goes and, like, straight after the speeches or something, so that those, like, pain points and they're taken down and the setting up are covered. And then maybe, if they can do, like, a good bit of camera work, takes it out for some candids during the day. Like,
or even became your content creator.
Yeah,
So do you know what? Just, if I don't need 2 shooters, the couple weren't getting that anyway. Come out the couple shoot with me and get some cool behind the scenes of me do my thing. Yeah. Like the wage wouldn't necessarily be there, but the stress that would relieve from you to literally all you've got to do is shoot. You haven't got to spend, essentially someone's paying you a lot of money per hour to put a tripod up.
Yeah. I do think there's a couple of times.
Put up a light stand.
Yeah. There are a couple of times where I'm just thinking, I don't need someone at the second shooter's wedding because I've got it covered, the 6-minute film, but I would like to be able to not say to the bride, I need you to get any dressed right now or I'm not capturing it because I need to be at the ceremony area. It's one of those things, isn't it?
So maybe if there's someone out there that doesn't use a second shooter but does use an assistant in that
it'd be
respect.
nice to
It'd be really awesome to hear
Yeah.
for you and know how that works
How
for
it
you.
works.
Because I think, like say, in photo, it wouldn't be needed because apart from them going to get me a drink from the bar, I don't think there'd be a whole lot for them to do. But with video, like I say, I think in some ways that could be a really nice halfway house.
Yeah.
That in that way, then you might even be able to look at somebody, say, really new in the industry who just wants to kind of get some experience at a wedding, getting a feel for how weddings do work.
Yeah.
And that, you know, or go to a wedding kind of maybe a level that they're not ready to shoot at yet, but we just kind of get an idea of the dynamic of them. That could be a really good way for them to get experience, but for you to kind of have a lot of those eases, those worries kind of taken away. Yeah.
Agreed. It's food for thought, that, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's given me kind of a little bit of a food for thought, like kind of even just rationalising it out. Like I think maybe I've been a little bit stubborn in time.
You came into it like, I don't like second shoot.
Well, myself, these are the reasons I'd do it. It's my way, the best way. But I do think, and kind of even just by talking through it, there are times where you do think and I think it all comes back to this, is if I could find the right person.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it would work.
If you could find a way to make it logistically easy for you, and it has to be a wedding that you want to do and you want to do enough that you'd be happy to get a second shooter for it.
Maybe look at there's like in future they can clone people. You know, like a thing. Like you can get like an AI bot. Like I could like step into a cupboard and then like I could have like another me. I'm not sure the world needs two me's. But could you imagine that? Imagine that. I could like get me out the box and then like, oh, you're coming to the wedding today, and then just back in the box at the end of the day. See you next week, kid.
That was an echo chamber.
Yeah, I'm not sure the couple deserve that much volume and chat on their day, but it's a nice thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think on that bombshell of two me's, I think maybe we should leave that conversation there.
After this long of recording consistently. But thank you as always for listening. I hope this has been helpful. It's been nice to chat about second shoot. I don't know why, it's just one that I've wanted to chat about since we put it in our sort of recommended episodes, that little note thing that we had. So it's been nice to chat about it and talk it through, especially like mid-season when
you're using second shooters
as well, and figuring out how it all works. But thanks for listening as always. Obviously, like, subscribe and like, and drop us a message if it's been helpful or you've got anything extra to say. Don't forget the branding and marketing workshop will be on the 19th of November, Cosy Club in Guildford, and you can get your tickets with the link in the description below.
Amazing. Yeah. I think it's one thing left to say, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.